What would you say is your greatest gift? Perhaps your intellect, your physique, perhaps your talent or affinity for something like music, art, or writing. Many times in my own life, I have considered this question. What would I consider my greatest gift to be? And as I have pondered this question, the answer came in the form of my show of 2020, Haikyuu. In my previous videos, I talked about how Haikyuu has taught me so many lessons, how opportunities come to those who are prepared, how one can find their moment, even if it seems impossible at times, how expressing your feelings and burdens is a healthy thing after all, how failure is essential to growth, how the process will always matter more than the result. Season 4, being composed of the match between Inarizaki and Karasuno, brought forth a myriad of reflection and exploration for myself. One of these explorations being the unique, often unmimicable dynamics of sibling relationships. Up to this point, there are a few other sibling relationships shown in seasons 1 through 3. Kei and his older brother Akiteru, Ryu and his older sister Saiko, and a few brief scenes of Shoyo and his younger sister Natsu. However, I should clarify, in every one of these sibling dynamics, the respective sibling does have some kind of impact on their Karasuno counterpart, pushing them to grow and be better. After all, Akiteru sets Kei back in motion when explaining why he plays volleyball even after all the pain it caused both of them. Saiko comes in clutch with the drumming band during the Inarizaki match, and is Ryu's biggest supporter, praising him and clearly feeling proud of her younger brother at multiple points during the match. Natsu makes the observation that the ball used to be like a stranger to Shoyo, but now, it's like they're best friends. She makes it clear that Shoyo has made significant strides in his growth. However, none of these sibling relationships directly explored the realm of two siblings who were both close enough in age and yet fiercely aligned in their interests. The first of the twins to be introduced, Miya Atsumu leaves a startling impression. Whether one loves or hates him, it cannot be denied that he leaves an effect on those he meets. As the best high school setter in Japan, and one of the invitees to the All-Japan Youth Training Camp, it is clear that Atsumu is a player of immense skill. And an even larger ego, evident when he tells Kageyama that anyone who can't hit his tosses just sucks. He is immediately presented as a foil and antagonist to Kageyama, provoking Tobio when he calls him a goody two-shoes. In the build-up leading to the Inarizaki-Karasuno match, a considerable amount of hype is given to the twins, and finally to the introduction of Osamu. There's this one quote that sticks out to me, one of two quotes that form the foundation of this video. Even if you manage to contain Miya Atsumu, his twin brother Osamu will make up for him. And while their moniker implies that they are the best twins in the high school volleyball scene, one can easily infer that they are both high-caliber players with immense talent. One of my favorite tracks in Season 4 is the very chaotic soundtrack that plays for the first time when the twins replicate Hinata and Kageyama's free quick after seeing it once. The track reflects the pair throughout Season 4. It is both playful and yet intimidating, perhaps akin to the music you might hear when fighting a difficult boss in a video game. I have mentioned it several times before, but I am in awe of Furudate's ability to connect meaning and themes through the kanji and names of the characters. The Miya twins are no different in that regard. Though both siblings share the last name Miya, and the subsequent kanji meaning shrine, it is my belief that the combination of their kanjis allows for a complete picture into the dynamic relationship that the Miya twins share. Atsumu, meaning an urge to eat, and Osamu, meaning to rule or govern. It is also equally notable that when taking the Atsu from Atsumu, and the Samu from Osamu, the kanji mean hot and cold respectively. And it's curious, the more research I've done, the more I've realized that the thematic representation between them is brilliantly demonstrated within the match. In the meaning of Atsumu's name, there is an insatiable hunger to win, a hunger to battle to the top, a hunger to improve, to evolve, to play against the best competition possible. As for Osamu, there is a similar hunger, this hunger to compete and dominate. Early in the match, after being forced into hitting a straight by Hinata, and later, a hunger that he clearly sees when he comments to Atsumu that Hinata plays volleyball with the same hunger that Osamu has when he eats his food. You know, Atsumu, if you get a bite of some food when you're starving, it just makes you hungrier. As for the kanji in Osamu, The twins both share a desire to rule the court, though Atsumu is visibly more competitive. In their abilities, their competitive fire, with each other, and at nationals as a whole. And as the brothers verbally spar, physically fight, celebrate, encourage each other, and subsequently make on-court observations, I thought back to one of the earliest quotes detailing their relationship. Aran comments after their recreation of the Freak Quick that the twins can trust each other so much because they're twins. It sure must be nice being brothers, after all. Osamu, on the other hand, immediately dispels the notion of trust to himself. It's not like I actually trust Tsumu, Osamu thinks to himself as he rails off a list of Atsumu's flaws. He never listens to me. He never returns things he borrows. And he lies. But who needs trust anyway? I mean, I know the ball's coming. Osamu's quote is an excellent summation of the confusing relationship often inherent within siblings. That even for all of their flaws, there is this faith. And perhaps, while not everyone has a direct sibling, there are certainly extremely close friends or relatives who fall into the realm of a sibling relationship. I would like to think I know my two brothers very well. In fact, our history together is littered with moments of pointing out each other's flaws, or when we were clearly irritated with one another. But those moments have only increased in meaning as time has gone on. The Miya Twins tell an incomplete story without the other. Just as how things need to be in balance, especially temperature. Steer too far to the hot end of the scale and you'll burn yourself. Steer too far to the cold end of the scale and you'll freeze. We are ever trying to find that balance, whether physically in temperature, or in the temperature of our lives. The twins consistently find that they have to balance their counterpart. Osamu, snipping at Atsumu whenever the setter is enamored with something he just saw in the match, especially when he mentally regresses 5 years. And Atsumu, calling out Osamu whenever he feels like his fellow twin is lacking energy, motivation, or is not playing up to his potential. The perfect encapsulation of these dynamics comes in the flashback detailing the Miya Twins' rise. The part where the brothers are gossiping about Aran always makes me laugh, reminding me when my brothers and I would develop our own little nicknames and inside jokes. We see the twins at their very first volleyball camp, where Atsumu was first inspired to become a setter. And the curious part is that Osamu was actually better than Atsumu. After all, he got to play setter first. Given that Atsumu was inherently competitive and consistently challenging Osamu, I think he still would have done the same, even if his immediate competition were not his twin brother. After all, they both hated to lose. But for Atsumu, Aran observed that it seemed like the future setter had something that went beyond just hating to lose. There's something almost wrong about admitting defeat to a sibling, even if you did clearly lose. I remember when I was much younger, I would always try to compete with my middle brother, Dave, in whatever we were doing or invested in at the time. Basketball and video games being the main sources of our battles. Of course, there were smaller things that we would naturally compete in our day-to-day lives, but I'll always remember how I couldn't match him physically. Given that he is 3 years older than me, I found that I was never as fast, strong, or as skilled as he was. When we would play basketball, I would lose just about every time. To put it in perspective, I am not a competitive person. I don't exactly thirst for the chance to play against highly skilled players or anything like that, and I don't think it's inherently in me to be competitive. There are certainly things that I can be competitive about, but for the most part, I tend to shy away from competition. That is, of course, unless it involves one or both of my brothers. I remember once when Dave and I were matched up against each other in a game of flag football, and when his head snapped up, I saw a glint in his eye. Up to that point, I had basically stopped everyone I had matched up with. Inside, I was relishing the chance to match up with him. And then he burned me for a long touchdown. While John is quite a few years older than myself and Dave as the oldest of our trio, he's probably the most inherently competitive. Him and I didn't compete too much when we were younger, since we were never really in the same circles, though he did teach me a lot. Nowadays, when playing board games, video games, or basketball, well, I know he hates to lose. Maybe that's what makes playing anything with him so amusing for me. After all, from my observations and my own experiences, it is often our annoying siblings that can bring out the worst parts of us. I love the scene where Atsumu and Osamu fight in the gym, as Atsumu directly challenges Osamu in an overtly aggressive way. The talented setter knows what his twin brother is capable of, and wants to see him play up to that level. Of course, his encouragement comes at a poor time. And after their physical altercation, when they lie in silence on their bunk bed and both agree to play a video game only hours after their fight, that scene always makes me smile. I can't tell you how many times I swore I would never talk to Dave again, only for us to be fine in a short while. When John, Dave, and I have been put on the same team for an event or game, well, maybe it's that sibling pride in me, but to quote Aran, when Atsumu was paired up with Osamu, they were perfect. But it wasn't always like that. Neither for the twins, nor for my brothers and I. If you have siblings too, maybe one day you'll go through this evolving thought process. My feelings about my siblings have been something like this graph on the shape of happiness created by the World Economic Forum in 2017. It has been covered extensively, but it concludes that we are usually the happiest in our lives at the two ends of the spectrum, at the start and at the end. While that topic in itself deserves its own discussion at some point, my relationship with my brothers has been something similar. When I was a child, I was proud to be their younger brother. I loved talking about them to my friends, all of whom were the oldest. Of course, when I hit my teenage years, I became resentful of being known as their younger brother. It would really irk me whenever people would say things like, "Oh, you're Dave or John's younger brother. I see the resemblance." I made up my mind that I'm never going to be like you. Osamu utters these words to Atsumu after observing his interactions with their middle school teammates. And perhaps subconsciously, this leads to the moment where Osamu bluntly tells Atsumu that you love volleyball a smidge more than I do, Atsumu. Being the youngest of three, I have inherited quite a few interests and hobbies from my brothers, the foremost being basketball and football from Dave, and music from John. Yet when I was a teenager, I found myself thinking that same phrase, that I hated being compared to them, and I'd made up my mind that I didn't want to be anything like them. That I wanted people to see me for me. And while I don't think that's exactly what Osamu was feeling in that moment, I think subconsciously he felt he needed to set himself aside from the ever-competitive and often disliked Atsumu. Yet, at the end of the day, the two brothers still remained tied at the hip, hungry and ruling the court as the infamous Miya Twins. And this is proven throughout the match, from the twins' quick and its reverse variant, to a bit of their unconventional playground-esque volleyball. Osamu and Atsumu still find new ways to surprise or scare their opponents and each other during the match. While Narazaki falls short at the end, I don't think it can be understated how Atsumu wanted to go to Osamu with his final set. And while Kageyama and Hinata read the attack due to their own experiences against Awa Josai, Atsumu knew and had faith that Osamu would be there to give it everything he had. A sibling relationship encompasses many different dynamics, of rivalry, of a consistent nuisance, of a deep and strong friendship, of a partner, of inferiority, of hostility, and even, at times, of unity. After the twins' quick is blocked, the Miya twins are both on their knees with the reality of defeat setting in, and instead of blaming each other, "Hey, you should have known better," or "Why didn't you go for a wipe or something?" or "You had the left wide open," they are in agreement. They screwed around too much. And both are equally contrite when facing Kita and the rest of their teammates later. I love this quote said by Oran. The biggest blessing that Atsumu's been given isn't his physique or various talents. It's actually Osamu. No matter how fast they run, if no one else can catch up, they'll always catch up with each other. I'm sure that can be annoying sometimes. I think every sibling has that hunger and desire to surpass their sibling. It often comes out in different forms, and it certainly can be annoying to be the one chasing, or to be the one who is chased all the time. But I would agree with Iran's assessment, that the biggest blessing I've been given isn't my physique, my intelligence, or my various talents. No, I would say that the biggest blessing I've been given are my two older brothers. And even though it would be difficult to get the twins to admit it, I think they'd agree, albeit begrudgingly. One of my favorite parts of Haikyuu is that these concepts I observe are always reflected in the series' main protagonists. Though it would be difficult to have the other admit, I have no doubt that both Kageyama and Hinata would be willing to say that meeting the other and having the chance to play, grow, and push each other was the greatest gift they'd ever received. After all, Hinata, having virtually been ignored in middle school and the start of high school, becomes one of Karasuno's cornerstone starters during their first nationals run in many years. None of this would have been possible had he not had Kageyama to unlock his potential. Kageyama learns much of what it means to be a teammate from his experiences with Hinata, from being abandoned and discarded as a result of his attitude, to becoming a setter who can bring out the best in his spikers by having faith in their abilities. The most clear-cut change I can observe is when Kageyama sets to Tanaka with the game on the line, mentally noting that while Tanaka's cut shot was dangerous, the chosen attack was not for Kageyama to decide. Tanaka puts it best. I thought Kageyama had nothing to be afraid of anymore. But it's not just the enemy that can push you beyond your limits. As I look back on the past few months, Inarizaki's Miya Twins helped me to fully reflect on all my relationships, especially with my siblings. That even if we drive each other crazy at times, we can always count on each other to be there. We can have that faith in each other. We can push each other beyond our limits to evolve and grow. And while these types of relationships are rare, they're worth it. I hope that one day you can find that someone. That someone who you don't need to put your trust in because you have faith. You know that they'll come through. That one day you'll have someone who drives you forward and pushes you to be better and grow. Someone who can keep you in balance. That one day you'll have someone that you can call your greatest gift. Hello everyone, it's been quite a while, hasn't it? First of all, I wanted to thank you all for the steady stream of subs in my extended absence. I can't tell you how grateful I am for all of the comments, views, subs, and likes that I've seen over the past few months. Unfortunately, it may be a bit of time until another video comes out after this one. I've been working on this one for several months, but I haven't had too much time because of my job. It is also one of my longer videos, which contributed to the delay. However, I felt that the Miya Twins deserved it, considering how much I've been thinking about them over the past few months. Dave, John, thank you for being my brothers. I don't know when you both will see this video, or truthfully if you will at all, but I meant what I said. You guys are indeed the greatest gift that has been given to me. Thank you again for watching this video. Have a great week, and I hope to see you all again soon.